Good morning, good morning, good morning. It is Tuesday, the 8th of July, 2025. Welcome to the show. This is Morning Brew with Graham Hughes on Politics Social. I just dropped something on the floor there. I'm sure it'll be fine. Anyway, so before we get started with the show this morning, as always, I want to say a big shout out to all our wonderful people in the chat here. We've got Scott and we've got Paula and Chris C and Lemon Twist. We've got Veg Pie in there. Hi, Veg Pie. We've got Leonova's Embroidery Journey. We've got Pygmalion. We've got Plum Duff, Leon Plum Duff. We've got Chris C. And also Joanna is in there. Martin and Saz. And One Angry Pagan is in the chat. Yuri is in the chat as well. Hello. Welcome, one and all. If you'd like to join our friends in the chat, become a friend, It's always nice to have friends. Just all you need to do is hit the subscribe button and wait for about a minute and you will be able to join the chat. If you don't subscribe, you cannot join, my friends. It's just, I don't make the rules. I just work here. I do actually make the rules, and that is the rule. Okay, so today we're going to be talking about Emmanuel Macron's visit to the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, although I don't think he's going to be spending much time in Northern Ireland. This is the first state visit by an EU leader since Brexit. Yes, also the first French state visit to Windsor Castle in over a decade. He's going to be greeted by William and Kate at RAF Northolt, and there's going to be a carriage procession. Isn't that nice? Like in Cinderella. It's going to be like it's going to be like a fairy tale. It's going to sort of a fairy tale, isn't it? Name that film. It's like a fucking fairy tale. Right. So yes, but beneath all the gold shit and warm smiles, Starmer, our Prime Minister, and Macron, the French President, are prepping a migration deal to do with irregular migration. And the solution they're discussing now is something that's been in the news for a couple of months, actually. They've been sort of prepping this. A one-in, one-out solution. So what I want to talk about today is why I don't think that will work very well. I think it will work better than the Rwanda plan, but we will get into that. This is going to be a pilot swap scheme. Britain would deport asylum seekers arriving by small boat in exchange for taking vetted applicants from France. King Charles has hinted at deeper challenges in his speech. These challenges know no borders, he said. He's going to say, no fortress can protect us at this time. Referring to defence, AI, and the climate. But borders are doing a lot of the heavy lifting in that statement. So let's talk about this pilot scheme. One in, one out. Seems sensible, doesn't it? Like when a club is full and you have to wait outside until someone comes out and then you can go in. We've all been there. So one asylum seeker who arrives in Britain by small boat will be sent back to France. In return, Britain will accept another asylum seeker who has a legitimate case and is currently in France. Okay, so the dynasty briefing on this is if you pay for passage on a boat, you will quite quickly find yourself back in France. And this, the effects of this will, the attended effects, I should say, are to disrupt the business model of people smugglers, would be to deter would-be crossers, and to reassure voters that, Labour is doing something. Labour's logic on this is to appease the swing voters and the right-wing press. Good luck with that, dickheads. And also outflank Nigel Farage. Mate. Yeah, you're never going to beat Nigel Farage on being a racist, xenophobic twat. He's the king of that. You can't, the only way to get rid of a king is, yeah. They want to show that Brexit hasn't made international cooperation impossible. Which it hasn't. It's just made it a lot more difficult, needlessly difficult than it was before. Hence why Britain is a lot poorer than it otherwise would be. £1,500 on average per household. We are down. If you are on a low income household, that could be 10% of the money you get in a year has now been frittered away to help Nigel Farage and his billionaire chums make even more money while taking away your rights, your freedoms, your privileges, privileges, rights and freedoms that these people keep hold of. Farage and his mates have not lost the freedom of movement around Europe. They can spend as much time in Europe as they damn well like because they've got the money to pay for the visas. You don't. Freedom to work. They can work anywhere they like in Europe because they can afford the visas. I can't stress this enough. Tell this to anyone you know, any friend, family, neighbour, relation, whatever, right? And they say, oh, I'm going to vote for refuck because I'm an idiot, right? Just explain to them that Farage took that away from them, hasn't taken it away from himself. Tommy 10 names, taking it away from everyone else, not taking it away from himself. He has an Irish passport. Gobshite. Anyway, so let's crack on. Let's be honest, this is going to, I think it'll work to a certain extent. A certain extent, if it goes through, right? But this comes across to me as more political theatre than political thought, like, i.e., thinking of a clever way of stopping this, stopping people coming over in small boats entirely. Now, the important thing you've got to remember is before 2017, nobody came over in small boats. Why? Because we had a thing called the Dublin Agreement. And the Dublin Agreement meant that countries within the EU could send people who entered irregularly back to the country from whence they came. If they were caught sort of halfway across, which meant that if you were coming over in a small boat and you were in British waters, didn't matter. You could be sent back to France, which meant that nobody came over in a small boat. Literally nobody. There were no recorded crossings in 2016. None. I mean, some of them might have got over in a boat while no one was watching, but officially the statistics went from naught to like 100,000 overnight because of Brexit, because part of Brexit was we were pulling out of the Dublin Agreement. So this is a kind of halfway house to try and get sort of, you know, can we send some people back? Fans like, well, rather you didn't. And we're like, well, I'll tell you what, it could be you give someone who's already been vetted, you know, the chance to come over to the UK, and we'll send this person who's unvetted back. And from the French point of view, unless there's a you know, hefty price you know, deal in place to that they can extract from Britain, I don't see why it's really in their interest to do all the expensive shit work of having to do, you know, but busy work, the bureaucracy of vetting asylum seekers to make sure they are actually asylum seekers, and then they come to Britain and they can work straight away. Isn't that great for Britain? Not so great for France. France has refused this sort of deal before. Macron has previously insisted that returns must be negotiated with the EU as a whole. France doesn't want to become Britain's offshore processing centre. And nobody knows what the legal framework is. Human rights groups are already raising alarms. There's parallel to Rwanda policy, expensive, unworkable, and legally shaky. And there's, you know, logistical chaos is kind of inevitable here because who decides who has a legitimate case? The French, and they spent all that money working out whether someone's got a legitimate case or not. And then like, okay, well, we can grant you asylum, but we're going to send you over to Britain instead. I mean, France still needs immigrants. France still needs, you know, skilled workers. And what if France refuses to take a particular returnee? Do we say, no, you've got to take this person? They're like, well, no, we've looked into their background and it turns out they're a massive nonce. We don't want them in our country. What happens if a swapped person later absconds and there's no EU-wide agreement backing this? Belgium, Germany, Italy, Spain not consulted. And without EU support, this scheme is diplomatically weak. Let's put it that way. And it might be legally vulnerable. It's not to say that we can't do a deal with France over migration. We absolutely can. But it's just other countries going, hey, hang on. I'm willing to bet that when Farage pops his clogs, they'll find some Nazi memorabilia in his houses. Says Nick and Diff, couldn't agree more. Joanna, when I went down to make fake sausages route, I ended up with a cabbage set in my kitchen. Okay, thanks for that, Joanna. Labour shouldn't play games on Farage's pitch. He is too practiced at planning the public's prejudices. Yes, I absolutely agree, Simon. That's why I don't think that Labour should really be going hard on this idea we're going to stop the migrants, we're going to stop the boats in daft and sensational ways, which I don't think. Look, I think it will work to an extent. I've got to say, I think that this is better than the Rwanda scheme, but not much better. And we'll get into that in a moment. But first of all, let me just say, if the goal is to stop all small border boat crossings, then, if they achieve their goal, as our friend Zoe Gardner on Question Time Newsnight last night pointed out very sagely, Zoe was up against a Tory MP and a Labour MP, and you couldn't tell a difference. Honestly, you couldn't tell a difference in the rhetoric from them when it came to irregular border crossings. And, the goal is to stop all small boat crossings, and no one gets sent back, and it means no one gets brought over. The moment the scheme succeeds, it becomes unusable and unworkable. Yeah, the whole thing is deterrent theatre in a way, because it doesn't work unless people keep coming over. Which is what it's meant to stop. Bit of a catch-22 there. But let's talk about Rwanda and why there's parallels with Rwanda and why this could backfire. The Rwanda scheme was a spectacular failure of the Tory government. Over 700 million pounds pledged. At least 300 million of that was definitely spent. That was spent. A lot of that went to Paul Kagame's government in Rwanda, who then went to spend that money on causing wars with his neighbours, like the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, around the Goma area in the east of the country, close to the border with Rwanda. The Rwanda plan was ruled unlawful by the UK Supreme Court in November 2023, back when the Supreme Court was mildly, sensible. And this caused an international embarrassment and a massive loss of credibility. And trying to outsource the messy part of the asylum system, which is the checking on where people are really from and checking they are actually asylum seekers and not just people coming in because they like putting their babies on boats. This is problematic. And also there's zero accountability for the humanitarian consequences. One in, one out. Okay, so are we going to split up families? If a family come over, a woman and two children, are we going to split them up? It's one in, one out. Which child goes first? Is this going to be like a Sophie's Choice situation? Like, what the fuck? And then we've got the people coming over. Are we going to split them up as well? So there's a family of four, a family of five, and they want to come over from France, and they're told, no, I'm sorry, but it's one in, one out. So one of you can come over, the rest can't. And the rest of you can wait in limbo till we get more boat people coming over from Calais in a small boat, and then we'll be able to send the rest of the family. Just the logistics of it are a little bit, I don't know. We've got to drill into it. We'll have to drill into it. Already, human rights and legal challenges are coming down the track. Legal aid groups are prepping challenges already. And human rights organisations such as Care for Calais and the JCWI are warning about trauma, abuse in French camps, and due process issues. This is not particularly great. And, experts are unimpressed. Steve Smith, who is the CEO of Care for Calais, has said, we've had enough of cross-border gimmicks. Safe route to the only answer, which is what Zoe said last night on Newsnight. Please watch that clip. It's very good. This is a political copy-paste from failed Tory schemes. Safe family reunion routes would actually work. That was Nick Beals from Refugee and Migrant Forum speaking there. Safe family reunion routes. Something that would work. Absolutely. This is meant to get headlines, I guess. Positive headlines from the right-wing press. It's not going to happen. And then we've got this, the underlying assumptions of this that don't really hold up if you think about them for more than, 5 seconds. The pull factor myth. The pull factor myth. The idea that people are coming to Britain because we're too generous. It's just, what? No, they're coming because they're desperate. And they often have ties with the UK, i.e. they speak English, right? People want to work. They don't want to come here and sponge off the system. They want to work. I've met refugees. I've travelled with refugees. I've never met a refugee who just wants to sit on their arse for years and years and years and then possibly go back at some point. And we need to have this system in place. We need to have a system in place that is fair, equitable, and well divided between the European states, right? We need to have a deal with the whole of Europe on this. But if not, we can do what we can with France, right? I don't think this is the right direction. I think this is the right direction, right? But I don't think this is the actual solution here, because safe routes would be the correct solution. We allow thousands and thousands of people to come here every year on visas. You talk about migration being too high. The vast majority, over 95% of that, is legal migration. We give out visas. If you want fewer people to come from other countries, give out fewer visas. It is really that simple. But obviously we don't want to do that because we need people to work. But here's the thing. What's coming down the line is this, right? A lot of people who leave Libya, Eritrea, Sudan, right, and come over to the UK because of historical ties. Maybe they speak English. They've got family here, right? They tend to, once the instability is over in their home country, Syria is a good example of this, they tend to go back. They tend to go back to Aleppo or Homs or wherever it was that they fled from, because all their stuff is there. All their family is there. Their roots, the school they went to, their old job, the place they know, the place they grew up in. People tend to go back, right? Once the instability is over, once the war is over, once the conflict is over, right? I know not everyone does, but a lot of people do, right? Here's the thing. When what happens to Bangladesh and India happens over the next 20 years, we're going to see Bangladesh, half of which is going to go underwater. We're going to have tens of millions of refugees from Bangladesh coming to Europe, because they're not going to stay in the Middle East. Do you know why they're not going to stay in the Middle East and they're not going to stay in India? Well, first of all, India and Bangladesh don't really have the best of relations anyway. But because of global warming, vast swathes of India are going to become uninhabitable, where you're going to be having successive days of over 45-degree heat. And unless everyone has amazing air conditioning units in their small shacks that they live in many of these places around northern India, it ain't going to happen. People are going to move. And here's the difference between the refugees we have now and the refugees we're going to have then. These refugees in the future from Bangladesh, from India, from Pakistan, they're not going to be able to go back. We're talking tens of millions from Bangladesh. We're talking hundreds of millions from India. They're not going to be able to go back. Why are they not going to be able to go back? Well, because their home is going to be a scorched wasteland that humans cannot survive in. It'll be as uninhabitable as the Sahara Desert. Please understand that while small tribes of Bedouins or Turag people can live in the Sahara Desert, it's a small tribe for a reason, because the resources are so small and you've got to live a certain lifestyle in order to just survive in that desert. Especially in summer months, you need to get the fuck out of there. You need to move. You need to go somewhere where you aren't literally going to die because of the heat. And we need to prep for this. We know it's coming. And we have two choices. We can either have a humane and fair system for resettling refugees in Europe, or we can have war. They're the two options. What do you want? Do you want fascism and war? Or do you want a safe system that allows people to come here from other places in the world that are becoming uninhabitable because of these big mad companies which basically are destroying the planet? I read a really disturbing story on the BBC website this morning about volcanoes in the Antarctic, which are scheduled to start going nuts again because the permafrost is defrosting, and that was kind of keeping things under pressure and keeping things cool down in the magma below the mountains. And some volcanoes may well start erupting. And I didn't think of this, because I didn't think that global warming would cause volcanoes to go off. But apparently, according to new research, there's a good chance that as glaciers melt and as ice caps melt, the ice caps melt in the South Pole, not in the North Pole, by the way, because in the North Pole, that's all floating on the water, like a big like iceberg or a big ice cube, just a big ice cube at the top. Down at the bottom, though, no, that's the continent, mate. All that stored water is sitting on top of a continent. And when that thaws, sea levels are going to rise and volcanoes are going to go off. And what do volcanoes spew into the atmosphere? Carbon dioxide. Great. So we need to get an asylum system set up sooner rather than later. Because at the moment, we have a vaguely sensible government. Vaguely. And in 5 years' time, we could have some dickhead like Farage or the Tories back in. Who knows? The way Labour's going at the moment, it seems very likely they seem to have a death wish as a governing party. Let's piss off as many people as possible. Let's go after the disabled, because nobody knows anyone who's disabled. Fucking pricks. Anyway, and yeah, like I say, many people who want to come to the UK have family here, language skills, cultural links here. I mean, if you're talking about people coming from other countries in the Commonwealth, I really understand why people would want to come here, because they've grown up learning about Britain. They know stuff about Britain. They can speak English. And, you know, deterrence doesn't work if you're fleeing war or persecution. You don't weigh up legislation if you're escaping torture or you're escaping the fact that your children might be put to death in front of you. People will still risk their lives, and the boat is the last option. And there's going to be some people who come across on boats who get across. And as soon as they step foot on dry land, it's going to be very difficult to prove they came across on a boat unless you caught them coming across on a boat. And yeah, France isn't necessarily a safe haven. Human Rights Watch and Refugee Rights Europe have documented abuses in French refugee camps, particularly around Calais. French police have been caught slashing dinghies and using tear gas on beaches. And the scale is often overstated. I mean, 50,000 people arrived on small boats into the UK last year, which is down from the peak in 2022. I know there's been loads this year, but I mean, the UK takes far fewer refugees per capita than Germany, Sweden, or even Ireland. And also, you look at some of the countries that take a shitload of refugees, and it's usually developing nations next door to the countries that have these conflicts going on their doorstep. Or the majority of refugees actually seek their refuge in the country they're in. They are, you know, moved from one city or one place or one state to another, internally displaced. That happens a lot as well. And these people are uniquely vulnerable. You look at the refugee camps in Syria, a lot of the people in there are Syrian. They haven't come from, you know, somewhere else necessarily. And then we've got the fact that this sort of returns enforcement unit is still a bit vague on the powers and the processes of how this is going to work. And unless it's supported by legal clarity, it risks looking like a PR stunt. I mean, that's the last thing we need. And in a moment, I'll talk about real solutions that might actually work. But first of all, let's look into the chat. That's what I like about this channel. Always there to cheer us up. Thanks, Dave. Who would take us if the UK becomes unlivable, given how we treat others? Well, this is the thing, Sarah. Because of people's innate racism and xenophobia, we would actually be welcomed in other countries a lot more readily than someone who was from Sub-Saharan Africa or South Asia. The thing is, though, I mean, even if you are British, there's a hierarchy. There is. It's horrible. There is a hierarchy of sex. There is a hierarchy of sexual persuasion, orientation. There is a hierarchy of race. If you're born here and you're black, you're born here, you're Asian. People, when you go on holiday, when you travel, you'll be treated differently than someone who's born here and white. And when we talk about white privilege and people get their backs up, go, oh, I'm poor, I don't have privilege. You do. You just don't notice it. Because there are people who are poor and come from a different ethnic background who have to deal with being poor and also discrimination, everyday discrimination, and have to worry about whether the country they go and visit is safe for them to go and visit, which is something that someone like me, I don't have to worry about, which I understand the privilege that I have by being European and being white. And a lot of other people don't have that privilege. Now let's start working towards a world where everyone is treated with due respect and not treated like in a different way just because of their cultural heritage, their cultural background, their ethnicity. I'd like to see that. And a way of achieving that is making sure that more and more people come from all over the world to Europe so that people are less racist. And this works because we find that the least racist places in Europe, like London, are places where we have a high degree of multi-ethnicity, multiculturalism. Places that are incredibly racist, like, I don't know, Lincolnshire. Places that are so white. Lincolnshire, hashtag Lincolnshire so white. Paula Thomas, you're number one. Also the first super chat of the morning. Thank you so much. It's actually worse than volcanoes. If the permafrost melts, it will release all sorts of gases into the atmosphere, including some greenhouse gases that are worse than CO2, including large amounts of methane. Yeah. Which is going to cause tipping effects, which is going to accelerate climate change so much faster. Thanks very much for that, Paula. And yeah, I mean, dicking around with the weather seems like the stupidest thing you could possibly do. Dicking around with the climate, not a great idea. But fortunately, that dickhead Marjorie Taylor Greene is trying to put through a bill in the American Congress. Don't tell us, Pike. Well, here's the thing, right? If she brings this bill through about chemtrails, which is the joke, right? What the fuck? But it says anyone trying to change the weather using chemicals, it might actually put the CO2 companies on the hook. The dirty fossil fuel companies, the oil companies, the gas companies, the coal companies. Might put them on the hook. We can sue them and throw them in jail. So go with God, Marjorie, you dickhead. Anyway, let's talk about real solutions that might actually work. A processing centre in Calais. Now, I've talked about this and said, like, France doesn't want to have to pay for the processing. So, okay, we'll pay for it. Britain pays for the processing centre in Calais. And this is funded by the UK or joint funded by the UK and France or the EU. If we were still part of the EU, they could chip in for this. I don't think they're going to. But this would allow refugees to apply before risking their lives at sea. It would reduce the demand for trafficking immediately, and it would be modelled on the Ukrainian visa scheme or even, kinder transport precedent, going back to the Second World War. And the idea here is that you already have the people who want to come across, you already have their details on file. So if anyone does come over after applying and being rejected, you have their fingerprints, you have their iris scan, and you've said, sorry, we have already said no, and then you don't deport them back to France, you deport them back to their country of origin. And here's the thing, this is why this will be a massive, massive deterrent, because it's like, no, you can apply, and we know that 85% of applications are granted because these are genuine refugees, right? So, the 15% who are told no are told in no uncertain terms, if you try to come to Britain and you are found, whether you come on a small boat, whether you're caught coming across on a truck or whatever, or you're caught 6 months down the line working in a building site in Croydon, right? Doesn't matter. We have your fingerprints and your iris scans on file, and we are going to send you back to your country of origin. No ifs, no buts. You are not allowed to come to our country. If you do, you will be deported. And here's the thing, all the legal stuff is done. All the legal shit is already done. And I know they'll be able to appeal to some extent, but the big legwork, the thing that takes months, if not years under the Tories, was trying to suss out whether people were genuine asylum seekers or whether they were just trying it on, which seems absolutely bizarre to me. And there's already been a deal with Albania, so that if Albanians come over here, they can be deported back to Albania almost immediately. And that was a deal that we did with Albania, which meant that the percentage of genuine asylum seekers has gone up, has actually risen. But why are we forcing people to get in these boats? Because there are no safe routes. I can't say this, I can't explain this enough to people. Pulling my hair out here, the little hair I've got left. You can't claim asylum in this country unless you set foot on the sovereign soil of Britain, unless you're Ukrainian or Hong Konger, or on some, in some cases, if you're from Afghanistan, which hasn't really worked out very well. But also, when asylum seekers are here, the asylum seekers who are here, and there are hundreds of thousands of asylum seekers here going through the system, allow them to work. From day one, they can work. Currently, people wait months or years in limbo, banned from employment. Give them a temporary employment number. Whatever the system you want, you give them a card and it allows them to work. But you can't pay them less than minimum wage. They can't, obviously there'll be restrictions in there. They won't get benefits. They won't get maternity leave. They won't get the other benefits that people who have lived here or are born here, lived here for many years and actually have residency or they're British nationals. They won't get the same rights as those workers, but at the same time, they can't undercut the British workers. And allowing people who are waiting for their asylum claims to be processed to work. I mean, I feel like this. I don't even know why I'm explaining this to you. I just feel like I'm repeating myself. But it allows self-sufficiency, tax contributions, and dignity. And it reduces the reliance on hotels, housing benefits, public services, because they'll be paying into it. And we know that people coming from another country to work here are a net benefit. They are net contributors to the British economy. They put more in than they take out. And this could, if we expand safe and legal routes, this could focus on family reunification, youth education visas, resettlement quotas, which is something that we should work out with the EU in a matter of urgency. We need clear, transparent pathways, which will reduce or even stop overnight illegal crossings. Because what's the fucking point, right? You know that you can either get processed in France in a processing centre. If you try and come across on a boat and you get caught, you don't get brought over to Britain. You get sent back to the processing centre. Or if you're processing, and I mean, it's not like we're going to turn the boats around. We can't realistically do that, especially in stormy water. And we don't want to send the boats around. What we want to do is get the boats over here, right, and keep them. So that the people smugglers keep having to buy new boats. Boats are fucking expensive. Outboard motors are fucking expensive. Okay? And I know that people are paying a lot of money for this passage, but we take the boats. Don't destroy them. Fucking sell them, Not back to people smugglers, but make some money out of them. And the people on board, you process them, and then the ones who have applied for immigration and been turned down, applied for asylum, they're on the list to be deported, and the people who haven't applied, they get sent back to the processing centre in Calais. You can get processed there. But before we send them back, we take their fingerprints and their eye scans, whatever, right? And we say, what country are you from? And they can tell us. And then if they try again, a second time, then we deport them back to the country of origin. If you want a deterrent, you've got to have a deterrent that's going to work. Because a deterrent will only work if there is a viable alternative. The viable alternative is trying to get asylum in the processing centre in Calais. That's your alternative, right? And if you don't do that, you can try the illegal way. And who knows, you might get into the country and you might be able to run around for a few months, doing whatever you can. But the reality is, at some point, you'll have to apply for some kind of, ID check, and you'll come up on the system. Or not, as the case may be. And if you don't come on the system, we're sending you back to Calais. Simple as that. And I know, you're going to be watching this go, Graham, how are you going to fit 50,000 people in a processing centre? You don't. These people are already in France, okay? The processing centre is just there for processing stuff. And we can help in France. We can help pay, but the French are going to have to pay for some of this as well, for accommodation for people who are applying to come to the UK. In the meantime, they can work in France. That's what the French want. But it does seem like an arse way forward way of doing this when safe and legal routes are there. They have an opportunity to get people's data and make sure that they are genuine asylum seekers before they come here. And if they are not, it gives us the opportunity to deport them rather quickly. Yes, I know there will be some legal argy-bargy before people get sent home, but the reality is that that system will be a lot quicker than what we're facing at the moment. And don't forget, once we have these people's identity on record, as soon as we find them anywhere in the country, doesn't matter if you've been here for 6 weeks or 6 years, we can send you back to Calais. Is it worth it? No. Apply in Calais, right? And if we say no, go find somewhere else to stay. Or stay in France. Whatever, Don't risk getting deported back to your home country. Somewhere else might want you. But, I mean, if I had my way, we wouldn't need a processing centre in France because, well, maybe we could have one in France, but I'd have one in every country in Europe, and we'd have quotas. We'd have quotas so that it's perfectly fair for countries across Europe to take their fair share of immigrants. That's it. Sorry, asylum seekers, not immigrants. Asylum seekers, refugees. I think that would be massively more fair. Sorry, I feel like I've been neglecting you in the chat. I'm very sorry about that. But I'll go to Strange Plains 24. I'm American, but I'm also the son of Filipino immigrants. Knowing the typhoons are going to get much worse breaks my soul. Knowing most of my family are still rice farmers back home, it's going to suck. Yeah. One angry pagan says, Graham, I seriously think McSweeney's plan is to copy the Mitt Fredriksson and her Danish Social Democrats. They squeezed the Danish versions of Refuck and the Tories with this tactic. Maybe. I met Norman Lamont in a lift once. He was very polite. Norman Tebbit. I'm getting me Normans mixed up. Norman Major. Simon Smith says, just need to remember how the Tories failed to provide a route for Ukrainian war refugees. Well, I mean, they did eventually. But the difference was that in other countries in Europe, people were allowed, especially like Poland and Germany and France, people were allowed to leave. Families were allowed to leave Ukraine and then go anywhere they wanted in Europe, in the EU, without having to ask permission to go into that country. So once they were out of Ukraine into Poland, which is part of Schengen and part of the EU, they could move anywhere around that area. And then once they went to wherever they wanted to, and it was generally, I drove refugees to places. I drove them to places in Germany, in the Netherlands, Belgium, in France, and they were meeting with family. And nearly every time they were meeting with family who were already there, which made sense. And then I had a family who came over to the UK with me, and they were going to be staying in Stockport, and that had to be organised in advance. They weren't allowed into the country until the paperwork had been done, which I think is a bit shit. But if the alternative, if their only alternative to get into the UK was to get into a small boat with their family, with their small children, and all of their things, and their dog, yeah. And don't forget, like these dinghies, like you get your space. You don't really get much space for luggage or anything. These people are traveling with everything they own. John C, thank you very much for the £10 super chat. Appreciate everything you do. The boomers of small town Somerset have been convinced that they themselves are victims in spite of their comfortable lives. Snowflakes, glad of my Irish heritage. Yeah, I'm glad of my Irish heritage as well, mate. Also my Welsh heritage as well. Good old Cumbria. We were usually from Cumbria, Wales. Yes, says Mr. Tisk. Mr. Tisk 27. Kate Smith, I don't think council would like that. It's more about making sure you're able to get a home place that suits your life. Leonora, who's that Tory twat who keeps doing train journeys? Makes my skin crawl. That is Michael Putillo. Michael Putillo. Face like a arse. Scousers are friendly, says Steve. I'm Scottish, and once I was waiting in Liverpool docks to get the Isle of Man ferry for the TT, and everyone who passed by said good morning. Yeah, Scousers are friendly. It is weird for us Scousers when we go to London and like we start a conversation on the train. People are like, why are you talking to me? But yeah, we're talkers. I'm sorry that disturbs you down in London. But yes, we also need to reform the asylum system internally. Labour has promised fast track reforms, but how fast is fast? We need clear timelines. We need fair hearings. We need proper legal representation to reduce backlogs and to sort the legal challenges. And we need to, above everything else, we need to stop politicising refugees. This is really critically important. Dog whistle rhetoric from both the Tories and Labour fuels misinformation and a misunderstanding of what immigration is in this country. The vast majority of immigration is legal. The vast majority of illegal immigration is people outstaying their visas. People from Australia, people from Canada, people from America, outstaying their visas. Not people coming across in small boats. It's relatively a small proportion. And yet that is the headline. And we need to call out Farage's scapegoating and Reform's race-baiting for what it is. They're going after the poorest, the most disenfranchised people on the planet. These are stateless people. These are people who can't go home. They've lost their home. Now, I would quite like Farage to be stateless. I would quite like him to be expelled from this country to God knows where. Maybe Antarctica as it melts. Maybe he could stay there and make friends with the volcanoes. I don't know. I just don't want him here. But there's nothing I can do about that because we signed up to the European Court of Human Rights, or the Convention of Human Rights, which includes the court. And unfortunately, we can't just deport people away to God knows where because we don't like the look of them, which is, unfortunate in some ways because I'd like to do that to Farage, but also it's fucking awesome in some other ways because why would we want to do that? It's vindictive and cruel, and it's a cruel and unusual punishment, especially if we're deporting people back to countries in which they are going to be killed. And this idea that Britain is a soft touch, fuck off. So, friend of a friend worked at a African embassy. I'm not going to say which one, right? And her job was basically saying no to everyone no matter what. She dealt with people coming from countries where homosexuality was illegal, countries where American evangelicals had gone over to countries in Africa and persuaded the government to make it like super illegal to have gay sex, and they would face hefty prison sentences, corporal punishment, whipping, even as far as some countries such as Uganda discussed bringing in the death penalty for homosexuality. And so people who were gay and people found out fled their countries and they went to this embassy or high commission in another African country, which is part of the Commonwealth. And this friend of a friend was told by our government to say no to everyone. To say no to everyone. Across the board. Doesn't matter what you were facing, people who were different religions, people who were minority religion in their region or their country who had run away, people who were running from gang violence, people who were running away from rape gangs. No. Every time. No. When they applied to come to the UK as a refugee, the answer was always no. Now, what's the question? And that really disturbed me, that conversation, because it made me realise just how cruel and callous this country is. We're one of the richest countries in the world. And we behave like this. We take fewer refugees than our neighbours. We take fewer refugees per capita than Germany does. And yet we sit here going, well, everyone wants to come here. Aren't we great? And we're not. We're quite horrible, actually. And if we're going to celebrate the achievements of those who came before, we also have to acknowledge the scumbaggery of the actions of the people who came before. If we're going to celebrate the fact that it was the UK, it was the first major power, Western power to outlaw slavery, we also have to acknowledge the fact that we were the country that made probably the most amount of money out of slavery. More slaves were transported to British colonies in the West Indies than were transported to the United States of America. Yeah. On Peg says, I don't even think Yvette Cooper actually believes this policy route, but is forced to by the top. I heard her in opposition argue for safe routes plenty of times in the past. Yep, that's true. Dog 4x4, try saying hi to someone you pass in the street in Lincolnshire. They look at you as if you've grown two heads. That's mad. Here in Durham, you always say hi. You always do. You walk past someone, you cycle past someone, even going past in the car. If you're like going opposite directions, they've had to pull in a little bit to let you past. You wave to them every fucking time. Like, People who've come up. I've told this story before, but like, people coming up from London to Liverpool are amazed at just how polite the drivers are, and people let you out. They're like, "Oh my god, people let you out!" And you try to reverse out your driveway, and people actually stop and let you reverse out your driveway instead of like thundering past at 100 miles an hour. But the one that always sticks in my head. I had a friend from London, proper Cockney, born within the sound of the Bow Bells, and he came up to Liverpool once, and we went into the shop. I bought a Mars bar or something, kind of Coke, and I had a chat with the guy behind the counter about focus. I need to set my camera so the focus doesn't stop, so the focus stops doing that, or maybe it's my eyes. Anyway, so I have a chat with the guy behind the counter about the footy, right? He's talking about the footy, the match. So we're going to the match today. And I'm like, "No, I'm an Evertonian." And he said, "Oh, mate, and condolences." We had a bit of a laugh about it, a bit of banter, and then walked out. And my mate goes to me, "Do you know that guy?" And I went, "No." He goes, "Why do you talk to him then?" Always stayed at me. "Why'd you talk to him then?" Like, what the fuck, man? Why would you bother? It's London mentality. Why would you talk to someone that you don't know? He's like, "Oh, you just seem to be like mates or something." And that's what I've never met him before in my life. Anyway, so final thoughts on this. Don't get fooled by the optics. Macron and Starmer will smile for the camera, and the king will say something vaguely noble, and Windsor will look beautiful in the summer sunshine, I'm sure. But the question is like this, okay? Will this actually stop the boats? And the weird catch-22 of this is, if you have a one in, one out, it will only stop the boats if people stop coming. But then, hang on, how does it work? Oh my god, the entire plan is a contradiction. But yeah, if Labour wants to actually deal with this issue, it knows what it's got to do. I know that it knows what it's got to do because I've spoken to a lot of Labour MPs about this very topic. It needs to ditch the gimmick and build an efficient, humane, and legal asylum system in this country. And that means processing centres, it means safe routes, it means legal employment, drawing claims, and it means the courage to speak honestly about what border security should look like, not just fantasy politics for short-term fucking headlines. That's my take on it. Your mileage may vary. I don't know. Right, let's get into the chat. Yeah, you can super chat to be lovely. I'll tell you what, I'm going to just do a quick goal because obviously we've not got much in the way of super chats today. So I'm going to do 15 minutes, right? We've got 15 minutes to get 5 super chats, any amount. And I'll wibble on. If we don't get this, I'll probably finish around 10 and you can go listen to James O'Brien. If that's what you would want, then that's what will happen. But otherwise, I will do a little bit of a bumper show. These shows were only supposed to be half an hour when I got started, Do you remember they were the half-hour shows? And then they sort of migrated, they became an hour, and now they're like 2 hours. And here's me thinking I wouldn't have enough to talk about. Leonore says, about Scottish trans, we work to improve gender identity and gender reassignment equality, rights and inclusion in Scotland. We are part of inclusive. We are inclusive of non-binary people. We strive for everyone in Scotland to be. George, thank you very much for the first of 5, hopefully, super chats to hit our goal. Another genocide has begun. This time it's being outsourced to other countries to do the dirty work. That's from George. I mean, we need a fair system. And the fair system needs to be fair for the refugees coming here, fair for the people processing the refugees. Also, it's got to be fair for the people of this country as well. And a fairer system is possible for everybody. But we don't even seem to be discussing it. We seem to be jumping from gimmick to gimmick, going from a Rwanda scheme to one in, one out schemes. I mean, the Rwanda scheme was never, ever going to work. The one in, one out scheme may have some limited appeal, but until there is a processing centre set up in Calais and we have the right to send people back to it if they haven't been processed, and if they have been processed, we have the right to deport them if they're turned down, and that needs to be put into UK law. That needs to be something that is passed by this Labour government, that is set up, and then the system is set. And then we can stop this absolute mad panic about people coming over in small boats. Something that didn't happen before 2017, didn't happen before the Brexit vote, because we had the system in place. And the system, although it wasn't 100%, people were still coming over in trucks and making their way through the Channel Tunnel, getting them, smuggling themselves on boats and stuff, on the shit, on the ferries. There weren't any people recorded coming over in small boats. Because there was no point. There was no point. They got caught, they got sent back. There was literally no point. And that's how you smash the gangs. That is absolutely how they smash the gangs. Christopher, if you want to stop the boats, you have to provide a legal alternative. If there's money to be made outside the law, the criminals will operate in it. Yep. I feel the same way about prostitution and drugs. If you want to stop the drug dealers, legalize it. All of it. All of it. I know it's harmful. Do you know what else is harmful? Falling in love with the wrong person. If you're going to make that illegal, great. Okay, let's do it. Let's do it. Come on, we'll do it together. It'll be fun. But until you are going to make falling in love with the wrong person illegal because, it's bad for your health, it ruins people's lives. Yeah. Until you can convince me that, that's possible, then you're never going to convince me that we should have a prohibition against drugs. I am very much against drugs. I fucking hate them. I wish they didn't exist, but they do. And as such, we need to approach the reality of drugs in a grown-up way. And we never do. We just don't. It's just something that we just don't really take into account for some reason. Nick says, restoring reciprocal freedom of movement would allow a lot more people out, assuming politicians are actually interested in net numbers. True. Gallifreyan Vent says, thanks, Kate and others. Maybe a move north of the border isn't impossible as I thought. I'll let my brain cell process it and look into it. On a day I feel less unwell. I hope you get better soon. Gallifreyan men, and also, Scotland's a beautiful, beautiful country. Lisa helping out with our target of hitting 5 super chats, the second of 5, I hope. £1 super chat there. Thank you very much to Lisa for that. You get a like from me. And Joanna says the problem now is that we have shrinkflation and inflation. The quantity decreases and the price goes up. Yep. I'm just horrified by the price of a beer. Like going to a student pub here in Durham, and it's like £6.50 for a pint, and I'm like, that's tripled. That price has tripled in the last 10 years because of Brexit. No one's talking about it. Paula, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Our biggest economic problem, apart from Brexit, is that our working age population is too small. The answer to that is on beaches in France. Yeah. I don't disagree. We need people. We need people to come over, and we need to be making the positive case for immigration into this country. And I don't care where you're born. I care about the future of this country and the future of Europe and the future of this planet. That's what I care about. I don't give a fuck where you came from. I want people to just live together and be able to work and be able to raise their families and feel at peace on their short time on this planet, because we don't have very long. We really don't have very long here. We're here for a good time, not a long time. And you're telling people they have to live in some kind of indentured servitude. We have visas that are set up so you can't bring your family over, but you've got to work here for 5-10 years. You can only work for the one company. You can't leave. If you leave that one company because they're treating you like shit or not paying you enough, then you get deported. So people are prepared to put up with shit working conditions, which drives down working conditions for everyone else, drives down wages for everyone else. It's not immigration that is causing the wages to be stagnant. It's the fact that the people who are coming here on these visas can't leave their job. It's the lack of workers' rights that is causing the amount work. It's a lack of workers' rights for immigrants that is causing the lack of workers' rights for the rest of us and driving down wages for the rest of us. Paid £6.90 for a pint yesterday, says Mr. Tisk. Yeah, fucking crazy, and that's because of Brexit. Why isn't that being fucking shouted from the rooftops? Tim Ballum, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. Fixing a glass washer. I hope I don't have to import any parts from Italy. Paperwork is a nightmare. Yeah, I can imagine. Mate. You don't want a glass washer, mate. You want to get a metal one. Because otherwise, you screw in the screw in at the bolt, right? And then it'll get to the glass washer and the glass washer will probably crack. Yeah, probably not the best of engineering products, that, a glass washer. It's a joke, Tim. I know you're talking about a machine that washes glass. Washes glass. I suddenly went a little bit Sean Connery there. Sorry about that. Christopher says, we can't ignore that overvalued property is a major factor holding this country back. Both commercial and domestic costs of property need to be reduced. Yeah, absolutely. And Liam says, I'm so glad I don't drink alcohol anymore. It costs enough for me smoking and the fortunate to fly a lot, so I live off cheaper duty-free, I guess. Dirt-free. I think still got dirt in them, mate. Check out your lungs. Paying nearly 50 for a pouch of tobacco. Fucking 50 quid for a pouch of tobacco. That'll kill you if you use it correctly. What a product. But I don't think it should be illegal. Here's the thing. I think if we made tobacco illegal, that'd be a stupid thing to do. I don't think boxing should be illegal. But I think that it should be done in a safe, manageable way. It doesn't require people to punch the other person in the head until they cause them enough brain damage to their brain, that they collapse. That's what I don't think should happen. I really disagree with the way that heavyweight boxing is conducted. I think that boxing should be more like in the Olympics, where you're given a head pad and basically you get a point every time you get a hit to the head, and you get 2 points for the head or 1 point for the chest or whatever the ratio is. That to me seems like the way that boxing should be. You know, like taekwondo, you wear something on your head, but obviously that doesn't look sexy enough for the people who want to see blood and broken noses and cauliflower ears, violence. And I'm like, yeah, so it does. I don't mind things being legal as long as they're well regulated and people aren't getting hurt. Alistair, thank you very much for the 5th of 5 super chats that take us over the limit, which means that I will wibble on with gay abandon. Alistair says, to be honest, yeah, I think that's what to be honest, Scotland has 5.4 million people and it needs more to live and work in it. So putting it out there to come up and live in Scotland, we're trying to make it better for us all. So Alba. I absolutely agree. I'm sorry for pronouncing Alba probably wrong. I apologise. My Scots isn't as good as me Welsh. And my Welsh is shit. But at least I know that a U is an I in Welsh. Clan did know, you know. We're not so different, you and I. Especially in Welsh. It's my best joke. Okay, can you imagine Gandalf doing magic dragons with no tobacco? Screams Andrew Ray. Yeah, I mean, imagine that fantasy character doing magic dragons. He could have used opium. That would have been a real magic dragon. Liam says everyone just pays on the black market for them now. Yeah. So UFC holding an event at the White House next year says it all, doesn't it? Yeah. UFC again, completely disagree with it. I mean, I don't mind the concept of it, but the way they go about it, it is fucking the people who do it. Like the people who do it, they're gonna die in their 50s if they make it that late in life. They're like the latter day coal miners. Do you know what I mean? All dying of black lung when they're 42 years old. It maddens me how a private landlord can charge obscene rent knowing that the state will pick up the bill with universal credit or housing benefit. Yeah, Chrissy, absolutely drives me mad. Why are we paying as taxpayers to millionaire landlords who own 5 or 6 properties? Why are we paying them money to pay off their mortgage on their 5th or 6th property? Why are we contributing to that in any way, shape or form? How is that the free market? But they have tenants in who are on housing benefit, who are on universal credit. Some of their money is going to that landlord. Some of their money, some of our money. That should be going to the person, the claimant, for the food that they eat. No, it's not going to that. It's going to a private landlord to pay for their 5th or 6th property. And these millionaire landlords and landladies are fucking it for everybody. Fucking it for absolutely everyone because they're taking up all the housing stock. We don't have enough houses in this country because of greedy landlords. Greedy shit landlords who don't, that's not a job. They pay a company to come in like once every 7 years to do a bit of decorating. That's it. That's their job. They have to ring a plumber now and again. And, I've stayed in rented accommodation. Usually it's just a mate of theirs who knows their way around the an adjustable spanner that'll turn up and try and fix the fucking whatever it is. I mean, I lived in a flat in Liverpool, no central heating. No central heating. Sash windows that didn't close properly. And the hot water was an immersion. There was no shower, so I had to have a fucking bath, every fucking day. Which took fucking ages, because you had to run the fucking bath. And you had to wait an hour for the immersion heater to fucking heat up. So, like, having a bath was a big fucking process. You had to wake up at like 6 a.m. if you want to have a bath in the morning before you left the flat. Landlord didn't give a fuck. Landlord was making loads of money. And my at the time I was on low income support, so the money I was getting from the council, from the state, that was going to my landlord, which I think's a bit shit. Don't you? Don't you? Hope they're not watching. It maddens me how a private landlord can charge obscene rent. Yeah, says Chrissy. I've read that one. The night a boxer at York Hall, Bethnal Green, was taken up to hospital with very bright with blue light past my front windows for some reason. There were faster and shorter ways to the hospital. Saz, who's been a member for 2 months. Welcome. You are awesome. You are awesome. 2 months of Saz. 2 months of sassy Saz. Saying lovely community. Absolutely. I love this community. I love waking up and having a chat with friends in the chat here. We've made a really nice thing here. I really do. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate every new person that comes along and joins us and gets involved in the conversation. Chip says, Jana White will not let the fighters unionize. Is there a boxers union, even though the sport is old and fiscally part of the economy? I mean, like, you know, I think that I understand that boxing is exciting. I don't know if you know this, but I had the opportunity to hang out quite a bit with Joe Calzaghe back in the day. This is way before we did Strictly Come Dancing and stuff, down in Newbridge, I think. Newbridge, down in South Wales. I got to meet his dad, Enzo, and shot a little behind the scenes video of him, which was really fun. And he's a really nice guy, really, really nice guy. I don't think Enzo's with us anymore. But yeah, I mean, I understand why boxing is enjoyable and fun and interesting and a great diversion, whatever. You know, I understand its entertainment value. I completely get that. What I'm saying is that I don't think that the rules should state that you have to cause, in order to win earlier than the 12 rounds, you know, you have to cause brain damage to your opponent so much that they are so dazed they can't get off the mat for 10 seconds. I mean, Christ's sake. Yeah, I'm going to cause a concussion. Do you know how dangerous concussions are? Do you have any idea? I'm going to cause brain damage. Yeah, I don't think that should be what you get the points for. I think what you should get the points for is hitting someone in the head, but they've got head protection on. So you get X many points, like what they do in the Olympics, which I think is a much more sensible way of doing that particular sport. But there you go. I know we have a building skills shortage, but we have over 80,000 prisoners. Why not introduce proper trade skills learning into prisons so they can learn a trade and when released contribute? Well, Chrissy, yeah, we talked about that on the show on the how to Fix Britain a few weeks ago, didn't we? About skills in prisons. It seems a bit mad to me that there's so many people in jail at the moment, because actually the crime rates are going down. Like the violent crime rates just it's like halved since the 90s. Have you seen the stats? It's insane. People just aren't committing as many crimes as we used to, but custodial sentences have gone up. So it means that the prisons are all full. And there's a lot of people in jail for non-violent drugs offences, which blows my mind. Because it's like, well, what? Why? Talking of why, should we go to the papers now? Papers, anyone? Papers? Woo, papers! Okay, so this is the unbelievable story of paying less to invest. We got Paris there. We got Paris fashion. Dua Lipa there in the French capital, dressed as one of the Birdmen from Flash Gordon. Dive! And then we've got this mad story. This is a fucking mad story. Trump team closes file. Victims fury as Epstein probe is shut down. Prince Andrew no longer under investigation after FBI review. Prince Andrew will face no charges over his links to Jeffrey Epstein after the FBI ended its probe into the paedophile's associates. Oh, that's a surprise, you know, because one of his associates was, say it with me, Donald Trump. Donald Judas Trump. That's what the J stands for. Here we go. What would you just do? My encounter with the Salt Path authors. There's a lot of hoo-ha going on at the moment about the author of this book called Salt Path, which I never heard of until this week. Apparently she made it all up. Or something. Risk of holiday as travel chaos as airports lift liquid restrictions. Airports have been quietly lifting the 100 milliliter restrictions on liquids in hand luggage, risking confusion over the peak summer school holiday period. Passengers at Birmingham and Edinburgh can take 2 litres of liquids in their cabin bags, but the rules vary by airport. Great. These are the girls who died in the summer camp in Texas, which is just it's just horrible to think about how the policies of Trump and Elon Musk led directly to the deaths of these little girls. There's no two ways about it. They were the ones who defunded the National Weather Service, defunded NOAA, and there weren't enough staff, there weren't enough people, and this is what happened. Charity cuts ties to writer amid doubts over memoir. This is about the Salt Path controversy. And then we've got a PM set to press Macron for one in, one out deal. Pact to return channel migrants and accept asylum seekers with a family connection to the UK. As we discussed today. The Guardian here, leading with bosses face ban on non-disclosure deals that silence victims of abuse. And then we've got Evan Patterson found guilty of killing relatives with deadly meal. We talked about that yesterday. I'm nervous of Labour's direction, says Donor, a proposal to force Gaza population into a camp. Into a camp. Israel's defense minister has laid out plans to force all Palestinians in Gaza into a camp on the ruins of Rafah. A camp. Forcing a displaced group of people into a camp. I'm nervous of Labour's direction, says Donor. Labour's most high-profile billionaire backer switch allegiance from the Conservatives says he is increasingly nervous about the government's direction and is in despair of politicians. This is the guy from Phones for You. Another picture of Erin Patterson, the murderess. The mushroom murderer, the definitive inside story. Just before we go into the next story, she did try and kill her husband on 4 occasions by poisoning him. That's why he didn't go to the meal. Something that wasn't disclosed to the jury. For years, we've given France a fortune while their police did nothing to stop channel migrants. Really? 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 That's the point. Hand back off 771 million, Mr. Macron, s'il vous plaît, if you please. No, I don't think they're going to please, because it was our decision to leave the fucking EU. It was the Mail's decision. The Mail told people, the Mail told all of its gormless elderly readers. Hang on, I'm going to say it before I go on. Not all boomers read the Mail. But everyone who reads the Mail is a boomer. So, gormless old readers of the fucking newspaper, they told them to leave the EU. And when we did that, when we voted out, that's when the big problems with migration began. Which, cheered Farage up immensely because it meant it would... grist for his fucking grift mill. The Daily Tory graph here, the Trump card in Wimbledon expansion plan. I don't use the word Trump. This is the really disturbing video that's been shown of the Manchester attack in Manchester Airport last year. When this is footage that was shown in Liverpool Crown Court today in the trials. This was Mohammed Faye Amaz, who was 20 years old, who broke the nose of a police officer there. No borders between us, King to tell Macron. Apart from La Marche. Trump targets Putin with new round of tariffs. Donald Trump is using tariffs to punish Russia. Really? Cutting cash ISIS will kill growth, building societies, tell Reeves. Really? Building societies which make lots of money from ISIS don't want Reeves to raid people's ISIS. There you go. New drunk patch for when you've got too drunk, which is really funny. Like, I imagine having a patch for when you're too drunk, right? So you're like, oh, I'm really drunk. I'll put this patch on me. All right. And you'll put your wife's HRT patch on instead. Feeling a bit fruity. But yes, is that going to be the new thing? Is that going to be the new speedball? It'll be like, it'll be alcohol and HRT patches. Unfortunately for now, if you are a cisgender woman, you can get hold of HRT off the NHS, you know. But if you're a trans woman, you've got to get it privately, which is causing a two-tier system once again. You know, if you're as rich as these fucking transphobes, if you're as rich as J.K. Rowling and your kid turns out to be trans, you can afford for them to get private treatment. If you're not a billionaire, you're fucked, aren't you? Nice of them. Never affects them. Never affects them. You think about anything that those rich motherfuckers want to do, it never affects them. They want to do it to the rest of us. And when something does affect them, when they're told they're going to be lumped in with everyone else, they're told they can't have parties at number 10 because of lockdown. They have to wear a mask when they go to the supermarket. They're told that they can't go to the pub anymore. They fucking freak the fuck out. Have you noticed this? Because I have. They're like, what? Why should I have to follow the same rules as everybody else? I'm Lawrence Fox, don't you know? Woo-hoo-hoo. I got kicked out of Harrow for being a twat. We get kicked out of our state schools. That's it for our career. That's it for our lives, you know? We're put on the scrap heap. You get these people like James O'Brien or like the fucking loser Fox gobshite. They got expelled from their schools, their posh, privileged private schools. They got expelled and yet still managed to very much land on their feet. We don't get that. We don't get that opportunity. And then when you mention it, what do you get back? The politics of envy. The politics of envy. I get that. I don't really understand the politics of envy much, because especially when it pertains to me, because, you know, I've got 2 Guinness World Records. I've been to every country in the world. I've got a beautiful fucking girlfriend, you know. I've got this great house in which I get to live rent-free. Oh, I've also got a private island. Yes, tell me more about this politics of envy of which you speak, of which I talk about when I mention the fact that private school kids absolutely dominate the arts in this country and that only 8% of working class kids get to be in TV or radio. 8%. I watched a video yesterday and it was about actors appearing in American things, pretending to be American, like the guys who play Spider-Man, so Andrew Garfield and Tom Holland. And then the guy from The Walking Dead and the guy from The Americans and Lawrence Pugh and, you know, all these different actors and actresses, right? And it would have them doing their American accents, Christian Bale did the American accent playing Batman, and then Henry Cavill playing Superman, you know, the all-American hero, actually from Britain. So it would have a clip of them doing their American accent in their films, and then it would have a clip of them doing the British accent, their English accent, their normal accent, the Scottish accent, their northern accent, the London accent, whatever it was. And I was just going for this. It was a big long little montage, right? I think they had about 35 actors there in this little clip, and like every one of them, except for one, went to a private school. And I was just like, yeah. But if I bring that up, if I mention that, you know, it's just the politics of envy, dude. It's the politics of envy. Stop being so envious, Graham. There's a big difference between wanting things to be fair and just wanting to make life more difficult for rich people, right? I kind of want a bit of both, to be honest with you. You know, this idea that millionaires are leaving the country, I'm sick of hearing that lie again and again and again. I've heard that lie on Sky. I've heard it on BBC. I've heard it on Channel 4 News. I've heard it on Channel 5. I've seen it on all over the internet. I've seen it on Facebook. I've seen it on TikTok. I've seen it on YouTube. People trotting out this fucking lie that thousands of millionaires are leaving this country. And they are not. Can you please tell people, if you hear them trotting out this fucking lie that was made up by a fund that does fucking golden visas for people or golden passports, right, has a vested interest in, it's a wealth accumulation fund or whatever you call it. And the way that their methodology was to just look at people's LinkedIn accounts and see if they were in the country or not. So if you were working in Dubai for a few months because you're a millionaire, and that sounds like something that millionaires would do, you were regarded as having left the country when you absolutely haven't done that at all. And don't forget, this wealth tax that we've been talking about and patriotic millionaires talk about is, and Steve Kinsella from Patriotic Millionaires talks about, it's not on like your first fucking dollar. This is after you've made £10 million in a year, you have to pay a 2% tax on anything above that. 2% tax. So if you earn $1 million above that, if you earn 11 million a year, you pay 20,000 in tax on 11 million. Come on. Extra. Anyway, Anne Phillips, policy solutions and fabulous friends in an excellent YouTube community. Yeah, it is, isn't it? It's lovely on here. I like it here. I used to go to scout camp by a loch, says Pete. Boats and canoes everywhere. Part of the training. Always had a life vest handy and a safety boat in the water always. Who have bacon butties on Saturday morning with windows shut so as not to tell the neighbours. Indeed. And I agree we need to eat less meat as a whole, but you're not taking me bacon. Or you make me want bacon now when I get bacon. I really do feel like there should be rewards for people shunning meat, at least for like 1, maybe 2 days a week to start with, and going to a more plant-based diet. But the options need to get better, and there needs to be incentives. There's no incentives at the moment, and people really do like their bacon. And yeah, like I keep saying, the best way to get people on board with this is just making them tasty vegan food or tasty vegetarian food. I used to go out with a vegetarian, and she would make, often the dinner would be pasta with tomato sauce on it, essentially, like dolmio, some cut up onions in there and some peppers and stuff. And that don't impress me much, I've got to say. But I think she regarded food as fuel rather than an absolute pleasure in life, and I regard it as a pleasure. Food to me is up there with gigs, sex, movies, music. It's a pleasure in life. It's not just fuel. It's more than that to me. So yeah, maybe if you're going to go out with a vegetarian, go out with someone who really takes their vegetarian cooking very, very seriously. And loves food as much as you do. George, thank you very much for the £5 super chat. The politics of envy, a dismissive term to counter social and economic inequality and the lie. Yeah, absolutely, George. And also, politics of envy, and the flip side of that is when I say, oh, well, I've got a private island, they go, oh, well, you're a champagne socialist then. Yeah. My cousin loves being called a champagne socialist. He's a working class lad who's done really well for himself, and he's like, yeah, I'm champagne. What's the problem with that? Yeah, I can afford champagne, but I want everyone else to be able to afford, at least a pint of beer. Faster hamster. Thank you for understanding, Pete. It's unfair to put any blame on the camp or the children. It's all the blame on the governments who could have prevented this. Yeah, absolutely. Those kids are dead because of Trump. No two ways about it. Trump and Musk. Trump and fucking Musk. We've got a picture on the front cover of the Daily Express here of a family. There's black children in the family getting a free family pass with National Trust. That's going to upset the readers of the Daily Express, isn't it? Hypocrisy of Labour's homes plan. This is plans to sweep aside blockers and build 1.5 million new homes. Apparently, this is hypocritical because Angela Rayner and others had put in objections to developments in their areas back in the day when the Tories were trying to develop stuff. And they're being accused of double standards. But when you drill down to this story a little bit more, it's because it wasn't necessarily like they were building social houses. They were just building shite. They were building like luxury fucking apartments for like millionaires or something, which they didn't need in their constituencies. And so the MPs were like, no, don't want more luxury apartments. Were you going to build social homes, like Conservatives? No, No. How many did they build? How many social homes did the Conservatives build in their 14 years of power? I think about 400. Someone look it up. Someone tell me, right? How many fucking houses? It's a ridiculously small number. I'm sure it's less than 500 in the whole 14 years the Tories were in power. So there you go. And we've got another picture there of Dua Lipa looking resplendent, dressed as one of the bad men from Flash Gordon. And then we've got the Daily Paper here. The I Paper. 50,000 children will be lifted out of poverty due to rebellion on welfare reforms. Nice one, Labour rebels. Thanks, Mary, my MP. Original Labour plan to reduce benefits was predicted to put 250,000 people into relative poverty, but revised legislation will actually lift 50,000 children and 50,000 adults out of poverty. There you go. Did you want some good news? Got some good news. Labour fucked up so badly, they ended up helping people. Now they got to raise taxes for the rich. Oh, how sad. And yeah, back to this crazy story in Australia, this mushroom killer. Mushroom murderer targeted me 4 times. This is the ex-husband who was not allowed to tell the jury his shocking story in case it prejudiced them, which seems fucking mad to me. But the ex-husband of mushroom murderer Erin Patterson said she tried to poison him at least 4 times before the deadly dinner that killed his parents and aunts. Fucking hell. Simon Patterson, 50, was twice close to death in hospital in the 2 years before she served them beef Wellington laced with lethal death cap mushrooms. He even created a spreadsheet with dates of meals and illnesses to prove his theory, the reason he turned down his ex-wife's plea to join the lunch. But his story was never revealed during her 9-week trial due to a legal quirk. There you go. Let people get away on with a technicality when they're obviously completely and utterly 100% guilty. This is on the front cover of the Financial Times here. We have the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, and Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, laying wreaths for the 52 dead of the 7/7 attacks, which happened 20 years ago yesterday. We've got Trump grants 3-week reprieve on return of reciprocal trade tariffs. Yep, let you hit it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Trump always chickens out. Do you know what I had for dinner last night? Tacos. Yes! It was Taco Monday. Doesn't work quite, does it? Yeah, well, whatever. It was good. I had to go to the co-op to get the bloody taco shells, though, because we opened the cupboard and there were no taco shells there. Don't you hate it when that happens? You're like, oh, we wanted tacos. And then I went to the co-op and I realised I had forgotten to take my fucking co-op card. Here you go, my co-op card. It's on my desk. I've forgotten to put it in my wallet. It's the 4th time I've been to the co-op and realised I could have got cheaper prices if I had my co-op card with me, including at Glastonbury, where they have a co-op. They have a supermarket at Glastonbury, which gives you co-op membership prices. And I didn't have my card. And then I realised, like a fucking dickhead, that actually, I could just use the app on my phone. I got the app on my phone. So I didn't use that. And I got a few pence off. Paula, thank you very much for the £5 super chat and staying with me through that whole pointless anecdote about me going to the co-op yesterday to get some taco shells. It is interesting that scientists and mathematicians have come from the state system, i.e. Paul Dirac, James Chadwick, Arthur Eddington. Yeah, David Attenborough. David Attenborough went to a state school, did not go to a private school. Although he sounds like he did go to a private school, he did not. Back in the day, there was a lot more social mobility in the latter half of the 20th century than there is in the first half of the 21st century. Social mobility is, in a bit of trouble. I seem to remember someone from the previous incarnation of Labour, before this one, saying something about social mobility not being a priority for Labour anymore. For some reason. Don't know why anyone would say that. Unless they were born at the top. Just saying. Hashtag just saying. Maybe that same person called the EU a mechanised Frankenstein. Maybe that same person blamed immigrants for driving down wages of British workers. Maybe that happened. I don't know. Probably happened, didn't it? Anyway, back to the papers. Reform loosens its vetting criteria for candidates despite MP's suspension. Nigel Farage's Refuck party has introduced looser vetting criteria for all candidates. Seems like a plan. And there you go. That's all the news that's fit to print on the front covers of our papers. Co-op, the only supermarket on our island, says Yuri. I love a bit of co-op. It's a cooperative. It's all good. I don't understand how you're supposed to eat tacos. Just look awkward as fuck. Yeah, they break apart. They break apart as you're eating them, and then all the stuff falls out of them. It's great. I had a friend who was a vegetarian who made very tasty veggie meals. The downside was that the kitchen was in around 2 hours a day cooking. Yeah, but it's worth it. Hashtag worth it. If you get tacos in Mexico, they're very different from the old El Paso tacos that you get in the supermarket, which are like basically big crisps. The ones that you get in Mexico, Panama, and Costa Rica, it's like bread. It's like a crispy bread rather than crispy crisp. It doesn't necessarily fall apart as readily. It doesn't crack apart like a tacos that you get in the supermarket over here. We don't quite do it right. Quite interesting. Like the food you get in Mexico is quite different from the food you get in a Mexican restaurant in the UK. The stuff you get in a Mexican restaurant in the UK is more heavily influenced by Tex-Mex cuisine. There's a little bit of American influence on it. It's a little bit different. A little bit different. Well, I mean, it's the same in India. If you go northern India, right? So we think of like curries. We think they're from India, but most of the curry places in the UK, especially in somewhere like the Curry Mile in Manchester, it's actually Bangladeshi owned, and it's Bengalese food, Bangladesh food style with that sort of more of a gravy to it, spicy gravy. But you don't really get that in India so much, especially in the north. If you get it, the meat is curried, or the veggies usually, because it's quite a vegetarian place. Is old India. If you want to travel and you're a vegetarian, couldn't recommend India more. India's like one of the best places to go as a vegetarian. Obviously, in Bangladesh and in Pakistan, people eat more meat there because it's majority Muslim. But in India, where it's majority Hindu, there's a lot of vegetarianism. Plus, meat is expensive, so there's a lot of poverty there, and people can't afford to buy meat. But yeah, the sort of what we think of as like a chicken tikka masala, it just doesn't exist in India. It's quite interesting. You go around the world, you have these foods, and you can't really quite get the same thing in the UK generally. But we're getting better. There's a wonderful place on Bold Street in Liverpool, which is a vegetarian Indian street food place called Bundabust, and it's fucking awesome. I might go there next Saturday actually. If you're in Liverpool, say hello. But they do those amazing little street snacks of all kinds of food, and there is an option to get everything on the menu, which is a bit mad. But really good food, really good vegetarian food, and it's a lot like the stuff that you get in India. It's a lot more like the stuff you get in India than you might get in a Indian restaurant or Indian cuisine restaurant in the Curry Mile in Manchester, for instance. But yeah, I don't know why I went off on that tangent, but I don't like it with tangents. Side quest, everyone. Andrew Ray, I got expelled the very last day of school for staying out late the day before. Private grammar school. They were always after me because I refused to join the military cadets on Friday afternoons. Ooh, well, at least you got expelled on the last day. A friend of mine got expelled from school, my school, because she didn't want to study the book that she was told to study in French. You had like a choice between 3 books for your A-levels, if you're doing like French or Spanish or German or whatever. And the teacher would pick the book that you were going to study and answer questions about in the exam, right? Well, she was a fluent French speaker since birth, not since birth, but since she was a toddler. She could fluently speak English, French, Italian, and German because she was half Italian, half German, and she grew up in Switzerland. So, and so she was like, "I'm not having this. I'm not having this at all. I'm gonna do this book instead." And they actually expelled her. They got her parents and the parents were like, "No, she's got to do the book that she wants to do." And like, no, this is the book that she's got to study. And so she's not studying that book. She's not studying it because she doesn't want to. She wants to study this book. She'll get a better grade if she does this. And she got an A. Of course she got an A. It's very clever. My meal last night was entirely locally sourced. Beef burger was made here in Devon from a local farm. Burger bun was locally baked, and the cheese came from Somerset. Yes, but was the locally baked burger bun was the flour for that from the UK. Or was it from ADM, Allied Dutch Mills? Hey, yeah, we need to find these things out. Manchester and Liverpool have some of the best food in the country. Most local family-owned ones do top-notch food. Absolutely. I had some fantastic food in Liverpool and Manchester. My favourites in Liverpool at the moment are Bundabust on Bold Street, and also the Ventral Street Market, which is just phenomenal. It's one of those places where it's like a food pit where you have the tables in the middle and you have the stalls on the outside, and it's all mostly Southeast Asian cuisine. It's got a Mexican place as well in it as well. If you fancy that, it's got bubble tea if you like bubble tea from Taiwan. It's just magic. It's great, and it's got all like the neon signs like you're at a food shop. It takes me back. I went to lots of places like that on the road when I was traveling in East Asia and Southeast Asia, where you stop for the night, and it was all like neon signs and come eat here at this counter, and you had a selection of counters to go to, and depending on which counter you went to, you got different types of food, and then you all sat down in the middle and ate it all together. Love it. But they're my top recommendations at the moment in Liverpool. Things will change, I'm sure. Good places go bad places go good. Joanna, I nearly got expelled during my A-levels. I wrote a piece of software, had a small bug in it that deleted the entire school network. Oh my God, Joanna. Obviously, I hid and removed all traces of me, got caught. Ooh. Was it like run, del, star, dot, star? 20, go to 10. Yeah, I know that wouldn't work. Manchester and Liverpool read that one. Pagan cheddar is the best cheese. Ooh, cheddar is the best cheese. I don't know. There's a lot of nice cheeses. God, a lot of nice cheese. It's one of the things why I could never live in America. One is Trump. The other is cheese. The cheese is shite. The third one is chocolate. The chocolate is shite. Americans can't make cheese or chocolate for cheese. They can't make cheese for cheese. Like, honestly, the cheese you get in America is shockingly bad. It's just plastic. It's American cheese. It's a shite you get on the cheeseburgers here when you buy a fucking McDonald's or something. It just tastes like plastic. Doesn't taste of anything. Just horrible. Just slop. Processed slop. It's horrific. Meanwhile, the chocolate over there, oh my God. They actually put a chemical in it that makes it preserve the chocolate longer, which makes it taste like sick. Genuinely, look it up. I'm not making that up. I'm not saying no because I find it unpleasant. But Hershey bars, to me, war chocolate. It's the chocolate you get when you're in the trenches in the World War One and you get a care package from home, and it's this chocolate that because of rationing or whatever, that it's what they've had to make the chocolates out of. Oh, anyway, now the software, I'm broken through all their security layers, which I was exploring. I managed to break into the top admin level and destroyed everything. Well done, Joanna. Crazy. As a teacher, if I lost a poor colleague, they always moved to the private sector. Well, private school teachers don't need to be qualified. They don't need to have a PGCE. Do you want to teach teaching in a state school? You've got to be qualified. And then because Labour are trying to tighten this up, so private schools had to have fully qualified teachers. I mean, this is a safeguarding thing more than anything else. The response from the Tories and from Kemi Badenoch, she stood up and said, "Oh, what if an Olympic athlete wants to teach PE in these schools? They can't anymore." Well, no, they can. They've just got to sit the same fucking tests that every other fucker has to fucking sit. Mikey had a whole argument about American cheese. There's no argument to be had, my friend. Kate, that it's beyond repair. They had this stuff called Monterey Jack over there, which is like the other thing, because it just sound like mock cheddar, and they had this Monterey Jack, and it's just like someone tried to make cheese because they saw it once in a book and just failed miserably. It's horrific. Belgium has the best chocolate I've ever had. Belgium does do very, very, very good chocolate. The next person who did it did get expelled, says Joanne. I'm biased as when it comes to lactose-free. There's only one cheese. I know that's safe for me, and that's lactose-free cheddar. Well, that's good. At least you can have some variation of cheese, and you don't have to eat the American stuff. Buy a block of cheese and then put it through the grater disc of the food processor. That was my shit joke, wasn't it, about Brexit, was that if we were going to go to WTO rules, grated cheese had a higher tariff on it than ungrated cheese. So Brexit would actually make Britain great again. Oh, I really need to get that wheelie tank. I need to get that tank noise, don't I? The wheelie tank going past. The squeaky tank. The squeaky tank. I liked Monterey Jack. It's light and melted. Has to be heated. It does. It has to be. And the same with the stuff that they put on the burgers. It has to be melted. But yeah. Anne Phillips says, I always thought Hershey's tastes like sick, but I only recently learned that there's a scientific basis for it. Yeah, there is. It's just fucking nutters. Oh, this chocolate's nice. I know, let's put some chemicals in it to make it taste like sick. Okay, so I'm going to head off now. I will be back tonight at 8:30. I'm going to be doing a bit later today because we've got a family thing happening in the evening, which I have to attend, which is fine. So I'm planning to do it a little bit later than usual. We'll have to check whether Ollie can do that. So I'll be having a conversation with him. So please, for the love of God, please subscribe to the channel. If I can find me fucking subscribe animation, there it is. Please me by subscribing to the channel and hitting the bell notification icon, and that will let you know when I've arranged for what time we're going to go live tonight with Geoscope with me and Ollie Bowler Hatman, and we're going to be talking about all the shit that's been going on around the world. Might be talking about foraging for mushrooms, for death clap mushrooms. I don't know, maybe a little bit of that. But in the meantime, let me say to you, have a fucking awesome day. You be awesome, okay? You stay awesome. Thank you for watching. Thanks for the chat. Thanks for the super chats. Really appreciate that. Give a little likey on the way out. Give me a likey. Thank you. And then I'll let you go. So until next time, thanks for watching. Hello, good evening, welcome, and